just very grateful for the work that you are all doing during these really difficult times in our country right now. I've represented parts of Flushing and Queens for about 12 years, or more than 12 if you count the assembly. And I really haven't seen such a more difficult time for so many in our communities than now. It is in so many ways many of our worst nightmares coming true. And so I'm heartened to know that you are all out there responding to the most vulnerable in our community. And I'm glad to be a part of this conversation. I think that I like to look at things glass half full and see how we can be optimistic and creative during these difficult times. This year, even though we are encountering a lot of struggles in the White House, and the House is also controlled by Republicans, but two new roles that I took on. One is I'm chair of KPAC, which is the Asian Caucus. In Congress, we have a lot of caucuses. That's like a club in high school, right? You have different clubs. We have something called caucuses. So I'm head of the Asian Caucus. We are at our largest numbers ever. Really excited this year with 3 new members, Derek Tran and Dave Min from California. And Andy Kim is not a new member, but a new member in the Senate, and Andy Kim. And so, we will see as the months go by, there are more races, and hopefully we will add to our roster and increase our Asian caucus. My other new role is the head of, the Democratic head, so I'm not the chair, but I hope to be chair in November, of one of the subcommittees. It's everything that funds the Department of Commerce, Department of Justice, NASA, NSF money, which goes towards a lot of university college funding, and NOAA, which is the weather. And so we have been trying to be, I was just telling Richard, creative in some of the ways that, the Trump administration, I won't get too political, but they're not always the smartest, okay? So they have some evil plans, but they're not always able to make it into reality. So for example, every February, the White House has to, as you know, submit their budget, their wish list, right? Their Christmas list of what they want the budget to look like. And last February, they gave us a budget. And just under my subcommittee, they wanted to get rid of programs under Violence Against Women's Act. They wanted to get rid of Minority Business Development Administration, not just defund, completely zero out, no more, right? They wanted to take out any portion of the budget that has the words diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI. They wanted to take out anything that would allow the census to count a non-US citizen. They wanted to take out all funding related to hate crimes and language access, culturally appropriate programming, as Jihei knows about. Many of you know about. So they wanted to take out all of this, but we were able to compromise, and we still don't know if the White House knows. We were able to put all that money back. So we saved those programs, and why that's important for our local community is that money goes to local organizations, and it goes towards helping people in our community. So, this year, because that budget just got signed into law last week. But the next process, which I want to mention, is something called community project funding. This is a process that will begin probably within February or March. They don't give us a lot of time, so when they say the funding opportunities open, you probably have 2 or 3 weeks. So the bad part of how Congress on the House side is restricted, they don't let us do any funding related to healthcare, education. They literally said it's too woke, so they don't let us have even hospitals. I've given money in the past to every single hospital in my district. millions for my 5 hospitals. Last year they said no more money for hospitals. So they're being very they're being horrible. But that's okay. Like I said, that's when we get creative, right? So for example, I was just talking to Richard. You don't want to give us money for a program, for a $50,000, $100,000 program that is preventative for whatever the topic is and saves money in the long run. How about you give us $1 million for the first ever Filipino community center in Woodside, right? So they're like, okay, yeah, that sounds great. We're like, what? Okay, you'd rather spend $1 million than $50,000? We'll take it. So we have just been doing projects like that, and then we can give you a list of projects that we worked on. But feel free, your organizations should think creatively on how we can do that. So they might not allow us to give money for like senior center funding or domestic violence related. But if you are interested in capital improvements, right? We got 4 new or expanded community centers, like hard capital money. So let's think creatively, right? But again, start thinking, and you can talk to my staff too, because we've been through this a few times. We know what it's like, what they are looking for, what they don't want to see, and sometimes we have to tweak the words a little, right? Like they don't want a CERN program, we saying, okay, well, it has to do with STEM, or it has to do with public safety, right? We can be a little creative. And so our staff can totally work with you. Every Congress member has projects. It should have a tie to their district, so you can apply, obviously, if you have ties to my district, which you likely do, but also applying to projects in the Senate with Chuck Schumer and Kirsten Gillibrand, they have less restrictions. So you can apply for some kind of funding for us, but something different as well. Another pot of money that I want to talk about that we have helped, for example, the Jewish synagogue, houses of worship, Jewish synagogue, mosques, Catholic churches. There is a pot of money under Department of Homeland Security that also goes towards hard, like capital money for houses of worship and nonprofits. So that's called the Nonprofit Security Grant, and that has to do with safety and public safety only. But again, feel free to reach out to our office. We're going to have a workshop. We have one every year, and people should figure it. It's about, I think it's like 70,000 K. I could be wrong. It could be more, but it's about 75,000 K minimum per entity. So that's something that you should let us know as well. But just really briefly, sorry, I'm kind of talking too much, because I do want to save time to hear all of you. On immigration, obviously everyone is very concerned. Our office, even before Trump, immigration has been one of the top things that people come to our office on, right? You all see it, you hear the stories all the time. It can be as simple as, I applied for my green card. I've been waiting for 4 years. I just got a call this morning. Can you help me look into it, right? This is not immigration related, but passport. We also do passports, right? A lot of emergency travel, or people lost their passport. People can come to our office as well. But obviously, under this year, it's been especially tough for our community, including the Korean American community. Every day, our staff is working on these types of cases. In some cases, people just showing up for interviews, or people being literally kidnapped, right, from the streets or wherever they are. We work almost every week on trying to reunite some of these families. Sometimes we're successful, and sometimes we're not. But we can always, definitely try if you're hearing about cases. There have been some high-profile cases affecting Korean Americans. We're helping with the case Sejun Park. You probably know his case. He is literally a Purple Heart veteran. Was following all legal procedures, checking in with ICE, and they basically made him self-deport, right? Part of his record stems from the Queen's DA's office. So we've been in communication with the DA's office and we're going to try to work with the governor's office on his case as well. But I've been working on some legislation. You know, there's some in our community, let's be honest, right? Some people like immigration enforcement. Some people feel safer. They think it promotes public safety. But the way that ICE is handling itself now, it doesn't make people safe. Even if you talk to the local people in Minnesota, the police officers in Minnesota, their reputation is being ruined because of the way that the ICE agents are operating. The ICE agents are not even following the laws that the local police officers have to follow. So I'm working on legislation for that. Also working on legislation to require agents to have a badge number. Everybody has to wear a badge and have their IDs displayed, from NYPD to IRS agents even, to FBI. Everybody is identifiable, and that keeps everyone, including themselves, safe. So, you know, I know we just had a big bill last week about funding Department of Homeland Security, which many of you have heard about and weighed in, including ICE. I voted against that because they need more guardrails and transparency, and they're not willing to provide that right now. So there's a lot of work that has to be done, and you'll hear more in the upcoming days and weeks. Tariffs is the last thing I'll talk about, and then I want to open it up to everyone. We just heard, obviously, that President Trump has changed his mind again and increased the tariffs. We, and I'm sure you all have heard a lot from our small businesses about how these tariffs are hurting them. Business owners, they don't know whether to eat the cost themselves or to pass it on to the consumer, right? And everything just costs more. So we understand that the president is using it as a tool, but it cannot be in such a chaotic and reckless way because it causes a lot of instability for our community and our country. And you know, he ran on affordability, saying that he wanted to make things affordable for families. And actually, costs have only gone up. Uncertainty has risen. It's been harder for small businesses, and costs have not gone down at all. And job growth has not increased. So these are some of the, you know, umbrella issues that we're working on, but I'd love to, Jihei, right, hear from everyone. And if questions, comments, criticisms, you know, feel free.
Hello everyone, my name is Richard. I'm the Executive Director for Korean American Civic Empowerment. Thank you everyone for coming today. I know that we've all been working very hard to protect our communities. And so one of the things that I hear a lot, right, I'm glad that you mentioned the social media stuff. So I know that at least for those that use social media and they've, I guess, trained their algorithms in a way to receive the messages from local elected officials, from community leaders, and et cetera, are receiving we're seeing the different things that are happening. But as we all know, not everyone knows how to do that, and not everyone is on social media. And so one of the immediate things that I think is necessary, and I kind of spoke with your staff before and a little bit before we started, is, and I've spoken to other offices with this as well, more visibility of seeing where the leadership is headed, and that a lot of folks, they're not on social media because they're working, right? Social media is what we do during our break time, right? It's a nice platform for many different uses, but ultimately a lot of folks are working class citizens. We're working hard, we're not on our phones, we're not, you know, whatever. And so finding more ways to be visible and I guess audible to these community members that they are not alone in this situation, right? And I know it's a tough ask because I know people are already on the streets, they put stuff on the newspaper, they do the social media, they do all this stuff, and still, for whatever reason, you still have a gap in terms of dissemination of knowledge and different types of things. So finding more creative ways of how we can work together as both community members, leaders, elected officials, and so forth to make sure that people, number one, feel safe, two, know that they shouldn't fear having to have their opinion spoken, and number three, to be able to have preparedness and readiness in case things go wrong, because we have these things called a Bill of Rights, but now it's starting to look like a Bill of Privileges that can be taken away at any given moment, which is terrifying for a lot of folks. And one of the things that we see that's happening, a lot of immigrant communities, they fled countries because of what we're seeing today over here in the stateside. And so it's kind of like a re-traumatization, a reoccurrence of whatever PTSD they might have had from fleeing their countries or from stories they've heard from their parents or grandparents. These are very troubling times. And so I think it's more important to be visible and heard of the people that are working towards, unifying, of providing protection, providing this type of security, the secureness of working together, because the alternative is everyone holds up on their own and we get picked off one by one for things that we've done nothing with, right? And so I have many asks, but I know we're limited for time, so that's my main one.
My name is Sunjili and I represent the Korean Chinese American Council Association, a non-profit organization based in Queens that serves the Korean Chinese community, also known as 조선족. Yeah, 朝鲜族. Yeah, the community.
你会讲中文
Oh, good. Yeah, and ethnic Korean community original from China with a deep cultural and historical tie to Korea. Yeah, many of us speak Korean as our primary language while also using Chinese in daily life. In the United States, we are often invisible within the system that the categories used only as Chinese or Korean, which creates unique challenges in access, representation, and services. Our communities include senior caregivers, caregivers, and restaurant and delivery workers, small business owners, and recent immigrants. Many are long-time residents who have contributed to the local economy for years. Today, the 조선족 community is experiencing heightened fear and confusion related to immigration, enforcement, and policy changes, because our community often falls between categories. Many people are unsure which information applied to them, which service they are eligible for, and whether it is safe to seek help at all. Language barriers, and especially the lack of the Korean language and culturally actual information, make this feel worse. As a result, rumors spread quickly, while trust information is hard to reach. So based on direct conversation with the community members, we respectfully ask for, first recognition of 조선족 community as a distinct Korean-speaking immigrant group. This recognition matters for outreach, data collection, and policy implementation. Second, multilingual access in Korean and Chinese, especially for immigration, guidance, healthcare, public benefit, and emergency resources. Third, support for trusted grassroots community organization. Groups like our serve as a bridge between government and residents, particularly for those who are afraid or unsure where to turn. First, know your rights, education, and mental health support. Fear, isolation, and stress are deeply affecting our seniors and working families. 조선족 community is resilient, hardworking, and deeply rooted in Queens. We want to continue contribution openly and safely, without fear or confusion. We sincerely appreciate the Congresswoman Meng's leadership and her commitment to listening to all immigrant communities, especially those who are often overlooked. Thank you for allowing us to share our voice today. We look forward to continue partnership and dialogue.
So really quickly, President Clinton had an executive order that increased language access at federal agencies. Trump rescinded that. So he's making it harder. I just wrote legislation, and I know it's going to be difficult to pass in this climate, but one day soon when he is gone, we have to put everything back at least and make it better, but we have to put it back. So that's why we're writing this legislation to restore that language access executive order. Mental health, so we just got a grant for New York City that increases mental health services. It's going through the city's Department of Health and Human Hygiene. So that's something that we're going to increase and expand resources. But also having conversations with, Myungmi's been part of some of the conversations with like Flushing Hospital, Charles B. Wang on how to increase mental health services. And they're open to working with others too, specifically in our Flushing and Queens community.
My name is Dong-chan Kim from the case. Our community is frozen in fear because of the administration's anti-immigrant crackdown. Since 2017, Case Legal Task Force has supported both undocumented and legal immigrants. But the fear has gotten so bad. We can't even hold a public workshop anymore. Everything's gone underground. From Korean Chinese neighbors to Korea 사람 families from Central Asia Koreans. People are living under constant stress and surveillance. This isn't just about policy anymore. It's becoming a mental health crisis. So, what kind of real political protection can you give us so we can do our work openly again without the fear of retaliation? Also, I have some questions. A lot of us feel like there's a big gap between what happens in DC and what we are facing out here. We appreciate the work in Congress, but will we see Congress members out here with us side by side on the ground? For instance, last week there were rumors that ICE was coming to the neighborhood in Flushing Main Street. Many neighbors and small businesses owners were in great fear. What can you do if ICE actually comes to the town? Number two, community groups are scared because of how aggressive the administration's being. Since we have political protection, would you and all Congress members will be willing to lead big rallies and stand out front so folks know they were not alone? Number three, you're on appropriation committee. That's real power. What specific steps are you taking to make sure no government money goes to violent or unauthorized ICE raids? Number four, the Democratic Party is all over the place right now. Progressives on one side, moderates on the other. Who's actually leading this fight, and how are you pulling everyone together?
My name is Won Tae-cho. I'm senior pastor of Free Church of New York City for 16 years. I'm served as chair for Korean American Central Church Network since 2017. Our mission to give the sanctuary for the undocumented immigrants. Actually, you mentioned about the budget and money, but we don't need money.
Oh.
Because I think church just to rethink about the very precious life. So just without money, just for 8 years we served for undocumented. Nowadays I'm a co-chair a network 23 Korean American non-profit and faith organization called 이한넷. We serve immigrant families, especially those facing fear, legal confusion, and isolation. The member cases by WCA. I think most. Now I want to share what we are seeing right now in the Korean American community. Fear is growing. Many immigrant families are afraid to leave their homes. Even my church member, some parents are afraid to go to workplace. Others are afraid to send their children to school. Some are even afraid to come to church. And confusion is also growing. People do not know their rights. They hear rumors, not facts. Language barriers make this worse. At the same time, our community is trying to respond. Churches and non-profits are becoming places of safety, right information, and trust. We are preparing rapid response trainings in Korean on coming Saturday, 3 p.m. in Flushing. We are sharing hotline numbers and legal information, but we cannot do this alone. We need clear guidance, language access, and coordination. So we don't need money, just we need partners. Our community is resilient, but right now we need partners like you. And we are grateful to be here today to speak together. In the mood of fear and anxiety, we ask, what steps is the Democratic Party taking to protect people right now? We ask not only to oppose expanding ICE funding, but also to speak out clearly and strongly for our communities. This moment feels familiar to history. I remember the words of Reverend Detroit Bonhoeffer spoken under Nazi rule. When a madman is driving bus, the Christian duty is not to bury the victims and pray, but to stop the driver. We ask you to help stop the harm, to stand with courage, and to lead with a moral favor. So we need partners. Thank you for listening.
YWCA and Young Kim, we need partners, and at the same time, we need money too. We really want
Fair.
We have so many other things that we wanted to brought up, but just like he said, we have after school in Jamaica. Nowadays, before it was mostly black community, but now we have lots of South Asian community came in, the Muslim community, and then for the attendance rate is very not so good because they're afraid of that they're gonna get taken, so parents said don't go to school, so it's that's what I heard from our director. And some of the seniors are worried about the Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare benefits. They're just talking about how we're gonna be surviving or something like that. And then I was wondering whether we could have something for the women's health and equity. So YWCA itself in America is very much of victimized in a way because of our mission. So when we have a national meeting, we have a really emergency meeting, and then some of them were closed down because of the so much of the pressure in the red state. So it's very, very challenging, and then we had a discussion about whether we have to change our missions or something like that, because our mission is eliminating racism and empowering women, and which of them, I heard that we should change the words or something like that, but we cannot change our mission. So we are still fighting for that. And then also, I wanted to ask you about the current situation about the DACA, because I have some requests from the DACA people and said, can you write a recommendation letter, blah, blah, blah. So, and I'm like, whether I write it or not, is it going to be really helpful or something like that? And then also as a Korean American, so we are a little bit concerned about AAPI and the AAPI history. Because in New York, thankfully, we are okay with it. Next month we're gonna have a Lunar New Year, a celebration. Although all those things are okay because it's a holiday or something like that. But whether it's going to be stayed in that way, so that we can promote that tradition or that culture. That's it.
Sorry,
And
you
then
mean
capacity.
for Lunar New Year or API
Both
to
of
stay?
them. For the Lunar New Year is for the Korean and the Chinese community
Yeah.
in a way that, we are closing our building for the Lunar New Year, but not this year though, because it's right next to the present day. However, the New York State is okay, but in the United States, if it doesn't really recognize it anymore, or they want to take it out, is it happening,
It's-
or it's
so-
not going to happen?
It's not recognized nationally now.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's going to spread out a little bit, right? No?
No, it's very much, so if you're talking about like school holiday, for example,
right.
that's been like the biggest wins for different cities, including New York, and random cities around the country, but the country does not recognize
Oh,
Lunar
okay.
New Year. I have a bill to recognize Lunar, so that's one of my dreams. But it's not reality right now anyway.
I see.
We want to expand it, but we don't, but we can do that in different cities and states. The state and city municipal legislatures, you don't need the federal government to do that. Yeah, mine is partly symbolic, but it's not a national holiday now anyway.
Myung-mi Kim from KCS Korean Community Services. My question is just simple, because every single nonprofit organization has the same issue over and over. So, at the federal level, Grace, what can Congress to do better support and stabilize the human service workforce, especially those serving immigrant, and AAPI community? For example, nonprofit workers. I know city, state ask about the COLA, but it's not equally for every single workers, especially some OMH staff, DYC staff, and something particularly state funding that covered that portion about the staff. It's not for every single nonprofit workers. That's not equally within the nonprofit either. So how can you change that kind of stuff?
I'm just gonna be really brief, and you've heard this from me before, but what we're going through, it should be actually a bipartisan issue.
Yeah.
We're talking about like human life here, right? So that's one comment I have, but so we have 24-hour hotline. You could imagine that our survivors, they're afraid of being home, but they're more afraid of being out on the street. So a lot of them quit their jobs, right? So there's no income. They're looking for food, but more importantly, they're looking for food for their children. So they're going through a lot. And as a nonprofit organization serving immigrant survivors, you spoke about OVW, right? So I thank you for your leadership, but what happened, like one smart thing about Trump is that what they did was they pivoted the program. So they put aside funding for culturally specific service provider for gender-based violence survivors through OVW in 2009, but they actually pivoted and now it's just community-based. So all the programs that we were eligible to apply, now everyone is eligible to apply. And they're not giving these fundings to the New York-based organizations.
Right. Okay.
So we got rejection from 2 out of 5 programs so far, and we have to reapply this year.
Okay.
But I know that they're gonna reject.
Okay.
So this is something I want to talk to you more about.
Yeah.
And we serve AAPI, right? Survivors of gender-based violence, but at the same time, the funding for domestic violence, sexual violence, child abuse, these fundings are actually passed through. So the state hasn't really invested in.
Right.
This is why the federal dollar is so important for organizations like KFSC. So I'm so glad that you also share these like new funding opportunities. So thank you for that. But also, all our organizations, right? The staff members themselves are immigrants, like first generations of Korean Americans, 1.5 second generations of Korean Americans. So they are already in fear for themselves, but yet we're asking them to do work for the community members, right? So as an organization, we're dealing with like 2 prongs of the fear. So I'm sure you've heard this before during the COVID time, but we're doing more with little, right? Even doing workshops, the mental health crisis is real, and doing workshop, it's not just that we're just doing once. We have to like think about the security, we don't want to get ICE raids, right? Because today we're gonna do Know Your Rights workshop at KFSC, but it's not publicized.
Yeah.
So we're doing more with little, and I want to emphasize again that the issues that we're bringing up, it shouldn't be, it is a bipartisan issue. And thank you for coming and listening to all of our challenges. And it's 12:05.
My name is Reverend Yongbo Lee. Currently, I'm serving Bayside United Methodist Church located at 3820 Bell Boulevard.
I live 2 blocks from you, Muksa.
Is that right? Okay. But I'm serving a multi-racial community. And also I belong to Korean American Sanctuary Church movement network with Reverend Cho and some other people here. So my real issue at this point, my congregation are divided with this political issue.
Yeah.
So, but unfortunately, why some white folks who support Trump administration, their voice is bigger than loud noise. They are very noisy, but they belong to my ship.
Yeah.
So I try to be neutral as possible as I can, because even though we are politically different, they still belong to our church members. But only thing I can do at this time, every morning, 새벽 기도, I take my issue, the current political issue, to God. So God, you are my partner. What are you doing now? So, oh God, motivate democratic people, leaders, to do something. But this is my reality at this time. Yeah, but we, as Korean American Sanctuary network, church network, we are ready to do always. We as clergy members,
Yeah.
we always pray for your work.
Just quickly, so out of this network, under his leadership, we also created Korean American Protection Network.
Oh.
And this is where the nonprofits,
Okay.
Korean American nonprofits are part of it.
Okay.
My name is Jun-Seok Kim, for Director of Korean Community Media Broadcasting TV. So we basically do your job and try to broadcast so that people in the media knows the informations and what's going on with the community. Basically, after hearing what everyone has said, I had the same talking point, same issues. The information's not getting into the right hands, plus the misinformations with all this immigrations. I do completely agree with you about the things that Democrats needs to step up and show some kind of, I guess, not a solution, but at least something for us to hope for. And I live in Jersey, but I look at New York as more of like a big brother. And you know, Jersey sort of follows through what New York does. And
Jersey too.
yeah, and I heard that like someone said, I think they're building through here from LA to Minnesota, and I heard that they're going to Philadelphia soon. So I think they're going to be here sooner or later. So I think we should have some sort of, we have to prepare, like she said exactly. I want to see some preparedness in terms of, you know, what we should do. Everybody's not going to be able to work. Even myself, I tell my parents to bring their passports, telling them to remember when they got their neutralization, because if you don't answer that, you're going to get detained. I mean, that's how bad it is right now. So I fear for my family, not just me, but for my families who are already a citizen. So if Congress or you guys can do anything to show us, lead us, guide us, be what we ask for.
Thank you.
Yoonji Kim, Interim Executive Director at the Plus Center for Community Action. So, in the interest of time, I'll also just keep it short too. I am fully in agreement with everything that has been said in this room, but I also wanted to bring up something that wasn't mentioned before. So, you know, this year, right, it's a critical midterm election, and there's just been there have been like moves made already by the Trump administration, right, for voter suppression. Like the DOJ has sent out a request for voter registration verification, right, which they do not need. So, and I think there's a real fear, right, that in the upcoming election, they'll also be sending out ICE agents to the polls to deter people from voting. So, and we do a lot of civic engagement work in our community, right? So I think one thing that we would want to know, especially, is what can we do to ensure like that voter protection safeguards are in place, right? And then also, Korean adoptees make up a large proportion of like the adoptee population in this country. So one specific ask we have is that there's a bill in Congress called the Protecting Adoptees and American Families Act. So we would really like you to ask you to co-sponsor the bill.
Do you know who the sponsors?
I know Congresswoman Camilla Child was like one of them.
I can look it up.
I can also send as well. But especially considering your now that you're a woman.
Yeah, we can look at it.
That would be really helpful. Especially because there's been so many high-profile cases of like adoptees unfortunately being detained and then deported, right? And this would give automatic citizenship to all adoptees who were adopted before 18, before 2001. And then I think the final thing is, as was mentioned before, there was rumors of like a race raid last Thursday, and we got so many calls from on the preceding Wednesday and on the day from community members who were concerned about the raid happening, right? They want to know whether they should go to work, right? Whether the kids should go to school. We had our staff asking us too, right? Whether they should stay home. So everyone is on edge. Everyone is just waiting for a serious raid to happen. So, and we are going to be on the front lines. Like when it happens, people are going to be calling us. So it would be really helpful to know what your office can do, right? So if we get these calls, right, like what support can we expect from you?
Hi, my name is Juba. I'm from Nippon Center for Community Action. Joey Nuna, I totally on the same page of the frustration part. And I want to say thank you for Grace for voting no to the DHS bill. It's up to Senate side right now, how they go pass the bill. I just want to echo what everybody says. You know, we are in the critical moment right now, and it's more than ever, it's very important to ask our elected officials to partnering with us for, you know, extend the effort to protect our community. So, as Pastor Joe already introduced and GM mentioned, we recently created a coalition within the Korean community. The official name, exact name, is Korean American Immigrant Protection Network. So there's a category also in there, and this one is just group there. And we are holding rapid response training on coming Saturday, and we are always seeking partnership with our elected officials to spread our word out and to come up with a collective effort to protect our communities. So I'm gonna call your office down the road for the collaborations. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm trying to cover everything, but this is not the last time we can talk. You should always feel free to reach out to me, to our office. I will start backwards a little bit. People should always feel free to call our office. We don't know when the raids will happen. Obviously, they are not giving us a heads up. We often get calls. I had a constituent who was at the airport. She's here legally. She was just visiting her brother in Texas. She is Muslim. She wears a hijab, and she has dark skin. And we think just because of that, she was literally plucked from the TSA line and deported, sent to Louisiana ICE. But because her family knew to reach out, we were able to work with her family and local advocates. This was in the African community, for example, and we were able to get her back. She is back with her family. She had no criminal record. So this is one of many, many examples of the cases that our office works on. Again, we don't know when the raids will happen, but if you or your staff or your colleagues hear something happening, or you think something will happen, even when you're hearing rumors, like we had heard about the Flushing rumor a few days ago, so we checked it out, talked to our local NYPD, and we can only do so much, but at least we're all relying on rumors. This is not the right way to do things, but this is our reality right now, right? We don't know. With our Latino groups, they've been on the front lines of putting out, for example, and I know you're working on this too, a lot of Know Your Rights information in different languages, and they're doing Spanish, for example, and just getting it out in as many ways and places as possible. Public events, like Mr. Kim said, it looks a little different under this Trump, right? Not everyone wants to go to a rally. Not everyone wants to go to an in-person workshop. So a lot of it does feel like it's very underground, but at the very least, we want to give them the information. Do this, don't do this, call your congress member or your senator's office or any government official, because we can all, work together. And that's the most emergency information that we want people to know. Look, ICE, even though I voted against funding ICE last week, they have $7 billion from the big ugly bill last year. So even without this pot of money, they're still able to do much of the harm, right? So I know, and this is where sometimes with the media attention, everyone's focused on this bill, which is appropriate, but we have to remember they've got $7 billion to work with. I believe, and maybe I'm just being naive, that last weekend in Minnesota was a turning point. I don't know if it's because he's a union member, he's a white man, he's a gun holder, I don't know. But this was the first time, and I screenshotted everyone, my Republican colleagues, for the first time, including Mike Lawler, who wrote an op-ed for the New York Times denouncing what happened in Minnesota. That is unheard of. They have not spoken one word about any of the raids that have been going on. So I'd like to believe, and we'll know when we go back to Congress next week if it's real. There's going to be hearings the week of February 12th where ICE, DHS, and is it CBP? I think they're all coming in. Now, whether it's an act or a show or not, but there is movement. And I want to say that I know it's not the answer, but it provides a little bit of progress that is a result of all of your work. So we have to keep pushing for that. We are pushing for a bunch of things from DHS. You know, defunding in one bill is not going to solve it, right? They need to change it from the bottom up and the top down. Accountability measures, guardrails, how they conduct these raids. And they're not even using, like, do they have warrants? Do they have any evidence, right? It's happening. And how I talk about it, you know, my constituents, my district is very purple. My district had the biggest swing from Joe Biden to Donald Trump in the entire country.
Oh my God.
That's our Queens district, right? So there are a lot of people, not just white people, people in our communities who said, I want what Trump's offering. I want to feel safe. Deport those bad immigrants, right? But this is not what they voted for, right? This is not the public safety that they supported. So when I talk to my Republicans, my conservatives, people who like ICE right now, I tell them they are not even acting as if NYPD would act. So that's not promoting public safety. Don't you want to keep your NYPD safe? We should not allow ICE agents to act so recklessly and unlawfully. So that in some ways, not that they'll support and change their mind, but that's how I've been talking to my more conservative and Republican constituents, because they can't argue with that, right? Like, they should not be able to operate in an unlawful manner different than other law enforcement. So, you know, we have to keep pushing and know that as hopeless as we feel, your efforts are working, because what we saw this weekend and the Republican majority's response, it's more than we've seen in the last entire year. Politics, you know, this sounds cliche, but we have to win back the House majority. When Trump was last in office, and I remember, Joanne, you convened a lot of the EDs with me right after Trump got elected because the staff were so scared. And I'm happy to do that also, because this Trump reiteration is worse than the first one. And I know people feel scared, but at that time we had the House majority. Democrats controlled the House. There were at least some sort of stopgap measure. Now we have painfully learned our lesson and know that the next time that we win back the House, we have to put these guardrails in, because this isn't just happening because Trump wanted it to happen, right? Agencies going rogue like ICE. It's happening because they didn't have enough guardrails to begin with. So we've painfully learned the lesson, and we need to change the system as quickly as we can when we get in. And politically, they are not, in my opinion, just accidentally or randomly going after Minnesota. They're trying to win that governor's race, and because they want to be able to maybe impact the elections, right? And who can certify the elections. And so even though voter protection, you know, that's like an official government concern, they are going after it very strategically. So in the near future, what we have to do is to make sure, you know, on the political end, that we win back the House majority, and we only need like 3 seats, and to hold our seats. Back to Joanne's point and Myung-mi with workforce. You gave me an idea. I think maybe there's something that KPAC, our caucus, can do with, like, let's say many of the state legislatures and gubernatorial offices across the country, to put them, including our own, on alert that they need to be funding our community at a more equitable proportion. So we'll work with you on that. But Congressman Meeks, and I don't know if this is a secret, but he's hosting, and we're partnering with him, a rally tomorrow. I think it's happening with faith leaders. I will make sure that you have the information, because I think this is to push back against ICE and what's happening around the country. So we'll make sure, Pastor, that you have tomorrow? That. Yeah, I think it's tomorrow, right? We'll make sure you have the information, yeah. But I hear what you're saying, I hear what Richard's saying. We need a more effective, consistent way to get out the message, to, at the very least, reassure and to comfort our community in our Korean and Asian communities, and we'll brainstorm on that. I just wanted to say thank you to Min Kwan and to the Sanctuary Church Network for supporting. There's a piece of legislation that would protect ICE from going into our schools and churches, and I think that would help a lot, because as you said, people are scared to go to school, they're scared to leave their house right now. I'm trying to, for DACA and voter protection, we'll talk more about that. I don't want to take up too much time. The other thing is small business. This is not directly related, but just as a reminder, we got federal money to open a small business help center at Queens College. They've been there for a few years, so we want to encourage Korean small business owners to go to utilize this resource. It's free, completely free. If you want to open a business or you want to expand your business, this is a free resource, and we'll make sure that you have.
Is that Frank?
It's under Frank. I got the money to do it, but my concern is that if no one uses it, they'll take it away.
Right, it's Queens College.
It's at Queen. It's called SBDC.
Okay.
I don't think we've even heard of it.
Really?
Yeah.
So York College had one, LaGuardia College had one, and we wanted one for Flushing, which is why we opened it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. We didn't
Yeah, we
get
had one.
any resource.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, now we know.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah. So it's a free resource. Adoptee bill, I will look for the sponsor. But yeah, so I think that, so look, I know there's no adequate solution or response for ICE and the raids and the fear right now. The White House is not going to tell us when they're coming to Flushing or when they're going to Brooklyn. It's just not going to happen. We need to be our own resource and our own network. So that's why we tell people, if something happens, if you even suspect something's happening, like even if you just hear from one staffer, they should feel free to reach out to us, right? We can help check it out maybe in a more safe way than like an individual can. The liaisons at DHS and ICE, they are still in communication with us, which actually shocked me last year. So sometimes we get information, sometimes we don't. But people should absolutely feel free to reach out to us, even if it's just a rumor. We are more than willing to check it out. So those are some of the things that I can offer right now. As KPAC, we've been having meetings with some corporations, and we're going to start having meetings with some foundations. And we understand the risk that they are facing, not wanting to continue DEI type programming. But we are asking them to be creative also. They don't have to call a program that helps our community DEI, right? They can call it workforce development.
Yes.
We've been doing that, to be frank, with Queens College, right? We've been steering a lot of money through CUNY because they are able, when CUNY has robust programs, it directly helps our community members and our young people and helps build a stronger pipeline. So we've been doing a lot of programming through that. We call it STEM, we call it AI, we call it tech, right? It doesn't have to be DEI. You don't like to use that word? Fine, we don't have to use that word right now. But the foundations and the corporations need to be creative with their funding too, right? Mm-hmm. They can name it something differently. And I know this doesn't make up for government cuts, federal government cuts, but they need to take some ownership of their customers and their constituents as well. With Kathy Hochul, with the governor's office, it doesn't always have to be by contract, right? We've seen state governments, including our own, react to, public sentiment like hate crimes, for example, like anti-Semitism. When they feel like there's like a larger public relations type crisis, they get very creative and create pots of money that goes towards our community. Hate crimes during COVID is a great example. Everyone was, you know, whatever the end result was, everyone was fighting over each other to give our community money and support. So we want them to understand that this is a different kind of pandemic. This is a political pandemic that is affecting our community, but maybe we can try to ask them to be creative, like, look, with all the government, you know, cuts, maybe we can have a more official type conversation with her team like this.
Yeah.
So that she can be creative and give money. She's being very creative right now with the different pots of money.
So thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, let's keep the
Congresswoman
conversation
Meng. Yes.
happening though. Yeah, don't hesitate to reach
I
out.
do wanna, yeah.
When I'm in DC, our office is still here. They control.
Yeah, awesome. So you
They're working hard.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're good?
We're good. We have food.